Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the 214 215 podcast. I'm Zekrom.
And I am Salty. So this is the first episode of our podcast. It's going to be an Eagles Cowboys centric podcast, but we're also going to take a view around the NFL and make NFL predictions every week.
Yeah. So we'll be delving in specifically into each the Cowboys and Eagles. We'll talking about the teams, the previous game they played, just general deeper analysis, and then general coverage of the NFL. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the name. Why is it called 214 215? Well, 214 is the Dallas area code and 215 is the Philly area code. I always thought it was kind of interesting how these are two sports cities that have, at least in football, have a long-standing rivalry. The fan bases generally don't like each other very much. But I just thought it was interesting that they're kind of like area code neighbors. Nice to kind of like 214 215.
Okay. So this week
All right.
we're going to be starting off with the Cowboys first.
So let's delve into the Cowboys. All right, so the Cowboys are currently 2-2-1. They recently just defeated the New York Jets 37-22. For his stat leaders, Dak Prescott has 13,000 yards, 1,300 yards, 10 passing touchdowns and 3 interceptions on 71% completion percentage. And he is second in the NFL in passing yards. Javonte Williams has 447 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. His rushing yards are good for third in the NFL and first in the NFC. And George Pickens currently leads the Cowboys with 357 yards and is second in the NFL with 5 receiving touchdowns. So, as I just mentioned, the Cowboys just beat the Jets. It was a pretty successful game, all things considered. Usually, when the Cowboys, like in years past, the Cowboys, if they're playing on the road in noon against a poor team, they usually kind of stink it up, at least to begin the game. But this was a pretty calm game throughout. Other than the first 10 minutes of the game, it was like 3-3. But the Cowboys ended up taking over thanks to the offense and some timely turnovers. Now, to go through some individual stats in the game. Sorry, this thing is taking a while. Dak Prescott had 237 yards and 4 passing touchdowns with 0 interceptions. Devontae Williams had 135 yards on 16 carries and a touch. He also caught a touchdown. Ryan Flanoy, a fan favorite among Cowboys fans, had 6 catches for 114 yards. George Pickens had 2 catches, including a 53-yard touchdown catch. And Jake Ferguson is continuing his great season with 7 catches for 49 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, Dak Prescott has had an amazing start to this year. He obviously statistically he's been really good, and his underlying advanced metrics have been really good as well. For example, he is according to Pro Football Focus, he is currently the highest graded quarterback when under pressure. In 61 dropbacks under pressure, he is 41 of 61 with 8 big time throws and only 3 turnover worthy plays. And he's only taking a sack on 8.5% of the time, which is third best in the NFL. A part of the reason why Dak Prescott's had such a good year is the play action game. An interesting stat that I just saw is for the last 3 years of Dak Prescott's career under Mike McCarthy, he had a combined EPA on play action passes of 8.9, which is middle, probably not that high up in the list. But this year alone, it's plus 19.8. So he's already doubled. He's more than doubled his play action efficiency this year. And I have to say I think that maybe Salty might disagree, but I think that there's a pretty good case that Dak Prescott's a top two, top maybe even the first MVP candidate this year.
Uh, that's fair. I wouldn't say that just because of the team record. It depends. That's obviously it's going to
Yeah.
ultimately decide whether a guy wins MVP or not. So I'm gonna assume Josh Allen's gonna win it until something changes. But definitely with how well he's playing, I can see it.
Next, I would like to talk about Javonte Williams, who has had an amazing start to this year. As mentioned before, he is third in the rushing yards. According to Pro Football Reference, he has the fourth best rush success rate in the NFL. In the NFL. And honestly, like obviously Cowboys fans don't like Jerry Jones. I don't like Jerry Jones that much. But I think he does deserve some credit for signing Javonte Williams for a really cheap contract. He bet on signing a guy who had an ACL injury, but usually it takes you a couple years to get back to form. And looks like he is.
I mean, couldn't you just say that's just a random flyer? Like you don't actually expect
Yeah.
like a player like that to just like have this incredible season, which is actually something I wanted to ask about you about. Do you actually think this is like a sustainable thing? Like it's Javonte Williams actually like playing credit. I haven't watched like every single Cowboys game and snap, but is it
Yeah.
like replicable
Uh,
or is it all like more of like the O line doing the heavy lifting?
the Cowboys were down four offensive linemen this week. They were
Mm-hmm.
down their left tackle, they were down their left guard, center, and right guard. So they had basically they had three undrafted free agents starting and a 6th round pick and a seventh pick. And they played really good. And like that's what was just really surprising.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Cowboys fans that I've talked to were kind of expecting this to kind of be like a trap game in the sense that, this is the type of game where the Cowboys have a bunch of injuries and they play a bad team, and then those injuries just cost them, and then like Dak Prescott has nothing to do, and the run game sucks. But that wasn't the case, and that's a big credit to Clayton Adams, who last year he led the number one rushing like offense in the league with the Arizona Cardinals, and this year the Cowboys have the most efficient run offense in the league, while his old team, the Cardinals, have the least efficient run game in the league. So I think that's a pretty good indicator of the value that Clayton Adams
Mm-hmm.
provides to his teams. Also, Schottenheimer has done a good job because he's calling the plays and he's done a job, situational play calling and things like that. There's a couple things that he could do better. Like I think like his because through for 4 games we've gotten the ball second and they've all kind of been terrible drives. So just like the start of halves, like start of first half, start of second half is something that maybe could be addressed, but overall just really good from the offensive side of the coaching staff. Then Jake Ferguson is someone I want to highlight too. He caught 3 touchdowns in that infamous game against the Green Bay Packers where they joined in the playoffs. Then for the next about 16 games he played, he didn't score a single touchdown, and in his last 2 games he has 3 touchdowns. So it's kind of like the floodgates are opening for him. And Dak Prescott loves tight ends. He loves throwing that seam down the middle. His tight ends are always his safety valve. So it's just really good to just keep having a tight end who's consistent and just producing at a high level. And talk about the defense. The defensive line, I thought had a pretty good game. James Houston continuing his really good start to the year. He had 1.5 sacks today. He had 1.5 sacks on Sunday, and that is good for now 3.5 sacks entire year. Which I don't want to say anything, but that's more than Micah Parsons. Am I saying that James Houston is better than Micah Parsons? That's for you to decide.
Yeah, okay.
But but also but just seriously, he's having a really good year. Obviously, when you lose like an elite pass rusher like Micah Parsons, you need some guys to step up, and James Houston has done that. Another player I would like to talk about is Dante Fowler, who has had a kind of who struggled this year, but he absolutely wrecked the Jets defensive line. He had 8 pressures according to Next Gen Stats, and he had a sack as well. He also had a pass deflection, almost went for a pick, but then it hit the sky cam, so it ended up falling incomplete. Honestly, the best thing that we did was kind of contain Fields' running. Throughout this entire year, we struggled to contain any quarterback who has any semblance of mobility. Even Russell Wilson was like moving around the pocket kind of well. And then obviously Jalen Hurts destroyed us week 1, but this week we contained Justin Fields pretty well overall the entire game. Brees Hall actually had a pretty good game. He had over 100 yards, but a lot of that came when like we were up a lot of points, so we were playing softer coverages and playing the pass, so some runs Abe made it through. But just so I don't think it's a major concern. But at the same time, uh, obviously, if you're trading Micah Parsons for run defense, you want that to be good at all times, right?
That elite Cowboys run defense been carrying them
I
all
mean,
these weeks.
yeah, it's really been carrying them. Linebackers, Maurice had a great bounce back. Last week he really struggled, but this week he played pretty good. He was Pro Football Focus's number one linebacker against the run. He forced a fumble when the Jets were deep in Cowboys territory. Um, Jack Sanborn, who's been pretty bad this year, got injured, and then which allowed Shamar James, a rookie, to get some snaps, and he actually played pretty well. Obviously tackles aren't like the best indicator, but he had 15 tackles and he only got snaps like kind of like halfway through the game. So he was obviously around the ball a lot. And the secondary, not much was really had to be said because obviously near the end we were playing soft coverages, so I don't think it's fair to judge anyone. Also, you're playing Justin Fields, which isn't a indicator of if you're shutting him down. It's not really an indicator if you're good or not. But overall, just a really good team. I think that this is definitely a performance you should be happy with. You're down your wide receiver one. You're down your wide receiver three. You're down most of your offensive line. You're even down some depth on the defensive line, and you dominated the entire game. So I think this is a win the Cowboys should be proud of. I think this is a win Cowboys fans should be proud of, and that they can build on this. Next week they will be playing the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers kind of have a middle of the road defense in terms of yards. They have the 10th best rushing defense and the 14th best passing defense, but at the same time, they are 12th worst in points, and that includes a game where they shut out the Atlanta Falcons. So I think that the offense will have a really good game. Rico Dowdle rose for 200 yards against Miami Dolphins, and obviously the Dolphins don't have a very good run defense, but you have to be wary of that, especially considering Breece Hall just had a pretty good game. So I think the Cowboys will get a win in that game,
They better.
but it's they better. I mean,
It'd be crazy if they lost to the Panthers. Like all things aside.
yeah, yeah. But obviously this next stretch until the bye week is really important. You have the Panthers, you have the Commanders, you have the Broncos, and then you have the Cardinals, and then you have your bye week. I think if you win not the Broncos game, the Panthers, the Commanders, and the Cardinals games, and you're 5-3-1 at the bye week, I think you feel pretty good about where you're at in the season. And then I think their last game is with the trade deadline. So any of the trades you want to make after that, well, so it's just a good place to evaluate your team to see if maybe you want to make a trade or not.
So, moving on to the Eagles, who had an extremely disappointing loss to the Denver Broncos after being up 17-3. Entering the fourth quarter, they get outscored by 18 points in the fourth and ultimately lose the game after failing to get a touchdown on their last gasp attempt of a Hail Mary. Um, so the Eagles' offense has been by pretty much any metrics that you look at, they've been absolutely like terrible this season. They have no turnovers so far. Actually, no, they have one turnover, I believe, but Jalen Hurts hasn't thrown a single interception. Yet they're still an incredibly middling offense. By most of the nerd stats like EPA per play, success rate, they're ranked as a mediocre offense, which is crazy with the amount of talent that they have. Um, they're not able to run the ball. They've been terrible on early down runs, which is something that they were incredible at last season. Saquon Barkley's averaging like 3.8 yards per carry when like last season he was at like 5. It's they completely abandoned the run. Not I've never been an extremely person that's like said you have to run the ball, but to only run it 6 times in a game where you were up by 14 points for the majority of the game is crazy. They've had a ton of penalties that have in this game, yes, they were screwed over by the rest, but the Eagles anyway shouldn't have put themselves in a situation where the refs are able to impact the game. They should just have salted out the game like they did so many times in 2024, where they'd get the lead and you could just rely on them to turn out an 8 minute drive, a 10 minute drive, like versus Steelers last season, where they're just running the ball for 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, and completely end the game. They just aren't able to do that right now. The passing game is completely disjointed. Is I know they passed for a lot more this week, but still, it's just not a reliable thing. They had three straight three and outs, and after the first two three and outs, the defense immediately gave up 2 touchdowns. So I can't really
Hello?
blame the defense for this loss. Like, yes, they gave up 18 points to end the game, and they had allowed the Broncos to run out like 3 minutes on that final drive. But the defense has bailed out the Seagulls offense like every single game so far this season, and you just can't constantly rely on the defense bailing out your offense when they're not doing anything and three and outing every other drive and just not even giving the defense time to breathe. Like the Eagles defense was on the field for 70 plus snaps back to back weeks this week and last week versus the Bucks. In all of 2024, they only played 70 plus snaps 3 times throughout the entire season. And like that's just not sustainable for giving your defense enough rest and everything. Like the Broncos had 11 drives. On the first 8 of them, the Eagles forced 7 punts and only gave up 1 field goal, which is incredible. Like you take that from your defense any day of the week. But then on the last 3, obviously your defense can't allow 2 touchdowns and a field goal there. But it's going to happen when they're getting zero rest because they're constantly out on the field. And the thing is, like, the Eagles' offense is struggling incredibly against zone coverage. Jalen Hurts is ranked 30th against zone defenses and ranked 10th against man. And the Broncos, to start the game, were in man coverage a lot to start the game. But in the second half, they only ran zone coverage. No, sorry. They only ran one man coverage once the entire second half. And lo and behold, the Eagles' offense completely stuttered to a halt.
One thing I wanted to add about Jalen Hurts, I've obviously never been high on Jalen Hurts, being a Cowboys fan, so I'm a little bit biased against him. But at the same time, I was looking at some like watching a little bit of film. And I noticed that there are plays where like it feels like Jalen Hurts has like an open receiver. Like I saw on Twitter at least that there were a couple of plays where Dallas Goedert was like kind of open downfield and Hurts just would not let the ball go. So I think that maybe he's just not like trusting his eyes and things like that. And also on Saquon Barkley, he is currently the third worst in the NFL among qualifying running backs in rush success rate.
Yeah, it's like, and I don't think Saquon has lost a step, as like a athlete this season. It's really just been like the run blocking. There has to be a pretty serious conversation about this O line, not pass blocking. The pass blocking has still been incredible for Jalen Hurts. He often has like 5 seconds in the pocket just hanging there. The issue being nobody's open. But the run blocking, especially from Dickerson, who left the game early with an injury, and Jurgens, neither of them have been particularly good. And Steen has also he's been better as a pass blocker than Mekhi Becton was last season, but he has been a lot worse as a run blocker this season. And that's just not helping the Eagles. They've also run 12 personnel, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, and a running back sets a ton. And the issue with that is that's condensing the field, so more defenders are going to be in the box. And usually what you do off that is run under center play action because the defense has a bunch of defenders in the box, so you can get them over the top. But what the Eagles do instead is 90% of the time that they are in 12 personnel under center, they are running the football. So the defense knows exactly what is going to happen. The Eagles are fifth lowest in play action rate on early downs, so they're just going in condensed sets, 12 personnel, and just running up the gut, and that for 1 or 2 yard gains, and that's not going to help anyone. That's not productive offense because then you're being in third and longs constantly, and that's just not a sustainable way to have offense. Though, to their credit, for the first time all season, they didn't run a coward draw on a third and long, instead passing the ball like they're supposed to. And lo and behold, 51-yard completion to Devontae Smith. It's like it's so you'd think it'd be so simple to just run a play, any play, because a defender can hold pass interference, what roughing the passer, anything can happen on a third and long. Why are you running up the gut for 2 yards? That's not helping anyone or anything. Just throw it. But anyway, I have their second fewest in first down passes, so that again goes to the same point I'm saying. They're just getting under center, running up the middle. They are third fewest in throws within 2.5 seconds of snapping the ball. And they have the second fewest throws that are past the sticks. So they are taking forever to throw the ball, but the ball isn't going deep. So that's just not a sustainable way to have offense. They're barely running RPOs as well compared to last season. Not last season, compared to 2022, which was what helped them a lot. In 2024, they relied on the running game, and that's the big issue with the Eagles right now is that they don't really have an offensive identity. There's really no sound, rhyme or reason to the way that Kevin Patullo calls plays. It's just a very disjointed offense, which is what results in the Eagles having the fourth highest three and out rate in the league. The Packers are third, and then the first other two teams are the Bengals and Panthers. On the defense side of the ball, again, I can't really
Well,
blame
with
for
just
the
a couple things
yeah.
I wanted to add on the offensive side of the ball. One thing I think is important to mention about the offense is AJ Brown's role in the offense. He's obviously been, at least on Twitter and things like that. It's clear he's not very happy in his role,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't really help himself this week. He had a play where he got behind the defense, and he just stopped running for some reason, and then Jalen Hurts threw the ball, and then so it was overthrown, which it was actually probably AJ Brown's fault that it was overthrown. And one thing I've seen Eagles fans mention is that if you look at the film, a lot of times you see a lot of Eagles receivers that just stop their routes and they just don't move at all,
Yeah,
even with all the time.
that is true, and that you could probably attribute that to just being like this offense, the design. I'm not in the locker room, so maybe I don't know the details. I don't know all the details. But it probably just the way the offense is designed, at least in my eyes, is just everything's a very first read. It like Jalen Hurts will hang in the pocket for 5 years, and just no one will ever come open. Um, which seems like sometimes you'll watch on film and the receivers will run their routes and their defense is in zone coverage, and it seems like the wide receivers are like purposely running into being covered, like with the way that the offense is schemed up and everything. And yes, AJ Brown obviously on that one play that was missed for a wide open touchdown, which probably would have put in the dagger in the game. He has to keep running there. Like you can't complain about not getting touches, and then on the route that's being schemed up to you for a wide open touchdown, just not like finish your route. That's just like not excusable.
I got a lot of vibes from like the 2023 Eagles, where it just seems like the vibes around the team were so bad, but they were winning games,
Yes.
especially early in the year. But they weren't winning the games convincingly. Like it always felt like they were kind of like I don't want to say that they were getting outplayed all the get time because they were winning games. So like you can't keep winning games by getting outplayed. But it generally felt like they were just not like they just none of the wins were convincing. Like they didn't have any like win that was like, oh, this team is really good. It was just like, wow, that play went wrong, they would have lost. Like
Yeah.
if that just one thing went wrong, they would have lost.
Like you can't keep relying on you can't keep relying on special teams to like that saved the Eagles versus the Rams and then gave them an extra touchdown versus the Bucks. Like you can't count on that to happen. Like you can't take it away from them. It happened, but like that's not going to be a consistent thing that you can count on week to week. You know.
Yeah.
Uh, And another thing is that I forgot to mention with the running game is that this is the least amount of designed runs that Jalen Hurts has ever had to start like this 5 weeks in, which is like
Mhm.
just also a thing that can't it can't happen. You know, like teams are oftentimes you'll see like on the inside zone runs that the Eagles will have where a defender is on block. They just do not respect Jalen Hurts as a runner anymore because they just know Jalen Hurts is never going to pull that ball and run. And it's not because like he's slow or unathletic anymore. It's simply because Kevin Patullo is just not either to protect Hurts or I don't know what other reason there could be. He's just not calling designed runs for Hurts, which is like a big part of what makes him so valuable for the teams is what he adds to the running game, and that like the the X factor force of him like in the rushing game.
Yeah. His running ability was definitely apparent when they played the Cowboys earlier this year. That was pretty
Yeah.
much like a lot of their big plays came because Jalen Hurts was able to extend plays and able to run. It's how they sealed the game. One
Hmm.
thing I also want to mention, you mentioned earlier that when they're under center, they're going 90% of the time. I actually do have a stat. So it's almost under center, almost 85% of the time it's a run. And
Yeah.
in the gun, it's almost 80% pass. So they're just not, they're just really predictable right now.
Hmm. And they're not mixing up like they'll call like one play action pass and like on their settler and then just call it a day. Like that's not a tendency breaker, you know, that's not going to help anything. And like that again goes back to the point that they don't have an identity. Like it feels very much like Madden play calling where you're just calling random plays completely out of order with no sequence or like thought behind them just to see what works. And it's just at least a very
Yeah.
disjointed looking offense. And it's like very likely, slightly looking ahead, that the Eagles will like win into the bye, considering they have Giants, Vikings, Giants. But like, you're not playing for the Giants, Vikings, Giants. You know, you're looking forward to the playoffs. And currently, this offense is not good enough to win you playoff games and take you back to the Super Bowl. The defense, on the other hand, is good enough to win you a Super Bowl currently. They really haven't lost a step from the 2024 season. It was a little bit rough to start, like versus the Cowboys. But after that, it's
Obviously,
been
they have Jalen Carter.
yeah, that you could attribute some of that to missing Jalen Carter. But even like with Jalen Carter, who has been playing injured, it seems like these past few weeks, it's just the pass rush. That would be like the only complaint to have with the defense is that the pass rush, specifically the edge rushers, have not been very good. There were often times where Bo Nix had like 4 or 5 seconds like in the pocket just chilling there, and our coverage is very very good with Quignon, DeJean, Campbell, and Bond. But that's just you can't allow a quarterback to just sit in the pocket for 4 or 5 seconds, even though the Broncos O line is very good. Yeah, the Eagles defense ranks like top 10, top 5 in most metrics. Their one concern again coming to their D line would be the run defense. It has at times been a little bit iffy, which could be attributed some to Joan Carter's injury, but still, um, Quignon and DeJean continue to look amazing every single week, making incredible plays. Though Sutton did have 99 yards and had that one catch on Quignon on the final drive, but like that's just a better throw, better catch type situation. Can't really blame that one on Quignon. There was the one unnecessary roughness on Bond in that final drive as well, which is you can argue whether that's a penalty or not. I personally didn't think it was. I feel like that's a tackle that gets made all the time and just you keep it pushing. But that's why you
Yeah.
don't put yourself in
It's like that
situations
concept
where that
before.
penalty can matter, you know? And like there's also the Goddard
Yeah.
one on the final drive. But again, in most like 1 minute drills, like stuff like that, the refs are gonna like keep the keep the flag like in their pocket if like they can unless it's like absolutely egregious, they're just not gonna call it. But aside from all the doom and gloom on the Eagles offense, they still have a short week to hopefully try and fix it versus the New York Giants, who they have opened up as 6.5 point favorites, which makes sense considering it's the New York Giants who are 1-4. Um, they're they should be a team that you can easily beat, you know, a get right type of game, even though Jackson Dart has brought more life into the Giants offense. these 2 weeks that he's been the starter. The defense should be
Yep.
able to shut them down, and that Giants defense is not particularly good. I know they have a really
Decent
good
line.
D line. Yeah, they have a very good defensive line with Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau,
But
and Dexter Lawrence and Abdul Carter.
secondary is a tragedy.
Yeah, that's
Secondary
secondary.
and the linebackers is a tragedy.
Yeah, those other aspects are not good, which would lead you to believe that the Eagles should be able to pass it on them. Um, But at this point, you just don't know what you're gonna get with the Eagles offense. Like they'll look incredible in one half, and then like they haven't practiced a single day. The next, it should be a get right back game. I'm expecting the Eagles to win, but with it being a short week and everything, it's just I don't know if they'll have enough time to correct all the mistakes. It's just I'm kind of just hoping that they get to the bye with a 7-1, 6-2 record, and just like last year, figure everything out in the bye, hopefully, and come out strong versus the rest of the slate that they have, which is a lot harder. But we shall see.
All right, so that is both teams. So now we can shift over to NFL predictions. All right, so Thursday night football is the Eagles and Giants, which we just went over. I also think that the Giants, that not the Giants, I also think that the Eagles will win. I just don't think that. I think that the Broncos are have talent, right? But I don't think the Giants have enough talent to overcome the Eagles' talent.
Mm-hmm.
I think talent is just gonna. Oh, I keep saying talent, but talent is going to lead the Eagles to victory, even if they don't play that well. I think that they're just too talented, right? I wonder how many talented that is. I think that's like it's in like 30 seconds span. But yeah, Eagles winning too.
They just love
Now the
sending
Broncos.
the worst games you've ever seen international, huh?
Yeah, they really do. The Broncos are a 7.5 point favorite, which is pretty significant. And I have to say, I think it's deserved. I think the Broncos will easily win this game. The Jets just have nothing. The Jets really don't have anything.
Yeah,
Their quarterback is bad. Their defense is bad. Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall are cool, but everything else is bad.
I would agree. The Broncos defense is very, very good. Despite all the complaints I have on the Eagles offense, at the end of the day, that is a very good defense that the Broncos have, and the Denver offense should be able to do more than enough versus that terrible Jets defense to get the win.
Have the Indianapolis Colts playing the Arizona Cardinals in Indianapolis. The Colts are a 6.5 point favorite. I think that's also very deserved. The Cardinals had one of the worst losses that I've ever seen in
That fucking
football history.
that yeah, pick six touchdown, that notification on Tyler Lockett was incredible. That was an all timer.
Yeah. In case you missed the Cardinals game for all our millions of viewers, the Cardinals were up uh by triple scores versus the Tennessee Titans. While they're trying to steal the game, their running back Amari DeMarcado, who I spent a lot of money on to get in fantasy football, and he just completely screwed me over. He broke free for a 76-yard touchdown, except he dropped the ball at the 1 yard line, which I still don't know how professionals who are getting paid millions are still doing this. But that kind of started the Titans comeback. Obviously, they had a play where they're driving in Arizona territory. The Cardinals get the interception, but then without being touched, by the way, the defender falls down. Who intercepted the ball? The defender falls down and he just loses the ball. Like literally a half second before he's about to get touchdown, he loses the ball, gets kicked into the end zone, and then Tyler Lockett comes and picks it up. So this is one of the worst losses I think I've ever seen. The Colts are one of the surprise teams in the NFL. Daniel Jones is having a really good year. I definitely was not very high on the Colts, and I'm sure Salty wasn't either, but they're surprising people.
Yeah. Shane Steichen, former Eagles offensive coordinator for that season. The Eagles had an incredible offense. He's done a great job with the Colts and revitalizing Daniel Jones' career, at least so far. It may fall apart in the future, but as of now, he's really showing how terrible Anthony Richardson was, that he couldn't make it work with him. But yeah, I think the Colts are. I don't know if it'll be an easy win. The Colts defense is kind of middle of the road, which has been more than enough with how incredible this offense has looked. And the Cardinals, for all their woes, still have a pretty good offense. But yeah, I think the Colts will get a pretty easy win here.
Yep, I also agree. I think that the Colts will pretty easily get the win. I think maybe the Cardinals will keep it close at like the beginning. I think
Hmm.
with Jonathan Taylor, my fantasy king, my my fantasy savior. I think he'll have a really good game. The Titans don't exactly the Cardinals don't exactly have a very good defensive line themselves and run defense. So I think this will be a pretty easy Colts win.
Next matchup is the Los Angeles Chargers at the Miami Dolphins, with the Chargers being favored by 4.5 points on the road. I think this will likely be a get right game for the Chargers after a very terrible loss against the Commanders, where they looked like they were in the lead, and they looked like they had it in control. Especially after they blocked the punt from the Commanders and Vlad McConkey returned it for a touchdown. But after that got called back for roughing the punter, the Chargers looked like they completely fell apart. And it after the Commanders took the lead, it was never close after that. Dolphins had a really close and entertaining game versus the Panthers, but ultimately lost. And just the Dolphins look like they're in complete free fall. So I think this will be a nice win for Herbert and the Chargers.
Yeah, the Herbert and Tua debates really fell off, didn't
Yeah,
they?
that was a time
Uh,
to be alive.
yeah. Yeah, I think I agree. I think that the Chargers will get this game. I think a really positive development for the Chargers that Lad McConkey had a pretty good game. He obviously had that punt return callback. He also caught a touchdown. He's over just more involved in the offense, which he just has not been throughout the first 4 weeks that the first four games that they played. The Dolphins, they were up 17-0 in that game, and then that run defense is horrendous. One thing about the Chargers is they did just lose Amari and Hampton for to IR due to an ankle injury. So they'll be relying on two backups. This is so if the Dolphins get run on by them, then you just gotta pack it up at that point. Uh, um, but overall, yeah, I think the Chargers will win this game. I think it actually might be a little close, but I don't think that the Dolphins are very good. I think the Dolphins are. I've always been low on Tua. I've always been low on the Dolphins as a whole. They no longer have Tyreek Hill. They did get Darren Waller, who apparently is just back to form after taking a year off. But I just don't think they're very good. I think that the Chargers will win this game. All right. We have the New England Patriots versus the New Orleans Saints. New England is favored by 3.5 points. The New England Patriots just got a massive win on the road in primetime against the Buffalo Bills. Drake May looks the part. He looks like a third overall pick. He looks like the future for that team. Um, Stephon Diggs has been heating up as of late. He had a good week, the Buffalo game, and versus Buffalo, he had 10 catches for over 140 yards. So that connection with Drake May is really heating up. They did just lose Antonio Gibson, but their running back room has kind of been running back by committee, and honestly, they've needed to give Travion Henderson more touches instead of letting Ramondre Stevenson fumble like 20 times a game. The Saints just got the win against the New York Giants. Spencer Rattler has looked pretty good for uh for his for he's looked pretty good this year is what I'm trying to say. Um, Honestly, they've had a lot of close games this year. I don't think they're not like a. Obviously, they're going to probably end up with a high pick, but I think it's not really tanking, right? They're just a bad team.
Yeah, they've been a pretty bad team for a long time. I also think the Patriots are gonna get the win here. Rattler has been very impressive. Have always been a pretty big fan of Rattler. But yeah, the Patriots just have the better quarterback. They're better coached, and even if it isn't by much, they also have a lot more. They have more talent than the Saints. This one might be close, just because the Patriots aren't like at that high end tier where like you can rely on them to like just get easy wins versus bad teams. But I think the Patriots should get the win.
I mean, if you look at the Saints' schedule, they've had pretty close games, except against the Seahawks when they got blown out. But
Yeah.
they had a close game against the Cardinals, the 49ers, and they were pretty close with the Bills until the end.
Hmm.
So, they have some juice to them.
This
All right.
game
All
is
right.
the Steelers versus the Browns. The Steelers are 5.5 point favorite. Um, the Browns just traded Joe Flacco to the Bengals like right before we recorded this. So they're completely rolling with Dylan Gabriel unless something changes. I think the Steelers should get the win here, even though they aren't the greatest team. They always seem to like grit out tough wins and get their way to a winning schedule despite having bad rosters. I don't know how Mike Tomlin does that, but he's an incredible coach. The Browns just don't really have much going on. They have Quinshon Judkins, who has looked really good.
Yeah.
These past few
They
weeks
got
have
Harold
been.
Fannin too.
They have Harold Fannin as well, saving my fantasy season in a few leagues. Um, but yeah, the Steelers should likely get this win. Aaron Rodgers looks good enough so far to keep leading the Steelers to wins, and they look honestly like the favorite to win the AFC North just because the Ravens and Bengals have completely fallen off due to both their quarterbacks getting injured. But yeah,
Wait, Rush got injured too?
no, Lamar Jackson got injured.
Other quarterback that got injured.
Uh, the Bengals had Joe Burrow get hurt.
Oh, oh, my bad. I thought you said both like Ravens quarterbacks. That's like, when did that happen? When did that? Okay, my bad. We'll cut that out
Yeah,
or
yeah.
not. My bad. I also think that Pittsburgh will win this game, but I actually do think it's going to be pretty close. Pittsburgh always plays down to their competition. It feels like they never get out easy wins. The Cleveland defense is actually like really good though, so I think that they'll be able to keep this close. I think the Steelers defense, which hasn't had the best start to this year, despite all the talent on that side of the ball, but I think that the Steelers will win this game. I think it'll be close, but they'll grind it out as they usually do.
So next game is the Panthers at Cowboys. I just like Zekrom said before, earlier during the Cowboys section, I think the Cowboys are going to win this, even if I'd like for them to lose. I just don't think the Panthers have enough to beat the Cowboys. That the Cowboys offense looks incredible so far. And Bryce Young is always going to have seems to always have a turnover or two every single game. And I after those turnovers, I just don't think they're gonna have be able to come back against the Cowboys. Even though the Cowboys defense isn't particularly good, I just think the Cowboys are going to be able to keep them at bay and get the win. Sadly.
Yeah, obviously I think that obviously I said it earlier, but I think the Cowboys win this game. I think they should win it pretty easily. I'd be kind of disappointed if they didn't win this game by multiple scores, just because Carolina's not very good. I think it's very possible that this game could end up being kind of close because with how bad the defense is. But, I think the offense, I just don't think Carolina, even if they're playing a bad defense, I just don't think Bryce Young can keep up with how Dak Prescott is playing. So I think Dallas will eke out a victory here. Well, not eke out, will win. They'll win. Next, we have the Seattle Seahawks versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are 1.5 point favorites, and they just got a massive win of their own. They just beat the Chiefs at home on Monday Night Football. Trevor Lawrence had an amazing play at the end of the game where he fell down. His foot got stepped on. He fell down again, but then he ended up scoring. So I think that Jacksonville, their defense has gone really good. Devin Lloyd has had a fifth-year breakout where he's Pro Football Focus's number one coverage linebacker. He had 4 picks this year, including a pick six against Patrick Mahomes. Um, Brian Thomas finally got involved in the offense, which is a positive development for that team. Um, I think they're definitely one of the surprises of the league as well. I don't think many people thought they'd be very good, and they're at least showing that they can compete in this league, which they haven't done in years past. Seahawks, on the other hand, they've had a good start to this year, but they did just lose to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in one of the games of the year. Sam Darnold had an amazing game until the very end, where a pass went off a pass went off a Bucks helmet, Lyman's helmet, and then Levante David picked it off. But overall, Sam Darnold has been really good this year. He might be, at least through like the first 5 weeks of the season, I think he has an argument for being a top five quarterback just this season. Obviously, I'm not saying he's better than like Josh Allen or something like that, but he's had a good start to this year. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think that just because Jacksonville has home field, and I think that fan base is going to be really hyped up, I think that they're going to be able to get a win.
Okay, that's gonna be our first disagreement so far. I think the Seahawks could come into Jacksonville and get the win. Sam Darnold has really impressive this season. Jackson Smith and Jigba has really broken out this season. Um, I just think the Seahawks offense is more than good enough to beat the Jaguars. And the Jaguars offense, despite looking a lot better versus the Chiefs, I just don't think they've been consistently good enough to outpace the Seahawks. Like even though the Seahawks defense is not very good, as evident by that Bucks Seahawks game where neither team's defense could get a stop until the very end. I just think the Seahawks have enough offensive firepower where they're going to be able to sneak out of Jacksonville with a win.
It's going to be a really close game. I don't think either team is
I
going to
agree
blow
with
out
that.
either.
I agree.
Uh, yeah. Trevor Lawrence, I don't think he's looked impressive. That impressive. He has 5 picks in 5 games. Obviously, the pick he threw last night probably should have been pass interference. But, you have to be able to protect the ball in this league, and Lawrence just has not done that. He hasn't really done that his entire career. But he did have that really good clutch drive. On that last drive, he had like an incredible throw to Brian Thomas down the
Yeah.
sideline, which got them deep into Chiefs territory. So, the Jacksonville Jaguars, they should just the Jaguars look really impressive this year. The Seahawks look really good this year. I think this will be a great game.
Next game is the Baltimore Ravens with the Los Angeles Rams coming to Baltimore. With the Rams being favored by 7.5 points. This Ravens team is just completely devastated by injuries right now.
Yeah,
Roquan Smith and Namadi and Mabuke. It's just their entire defensive line. The starters are just half of them are down to injury right now, and on offense, Lamar Jackson is still hurt. So it's just the Rams have obviously been a very good team. Their offense has been incredible. Their defense, led by Jared Verse, has been more than good enough as well. And I just think with how devastated with injuries the Ravens are right now, the Rams are gonna get a very easy win this week, which is a shame because this could have been a very fun game had the Ravens been healthy.
it really is. Obviously the Rams just lost to the 49ers, so this will be a good opportunity against a bad team to bounce back, even though the 49ers were similarly be injured, but at the same time the 49ers have Kyle Shanahan and the Ravens have John Harbaugh. So I think the Rams will easily win this game. I expect it to be by multiple scores. Um, I'd be really disappointed if it wasn't multiple scores if I was a Rams fan. But I mean, Baltimore's just cooked. They weren't even that good before a lot of the injuries happened. Their defense was bad before a lot of these injuries. And their best players just keep getting injured. So I think Baltimore just has to look towards the future, maybe try to stay as healthy as you can. We get up just looking at the season, just try and get a higher draft pick at this point because you've got so many injuries. It's going to be hard to do anything. Even if you get healthy later in the year, you're
Mhm.
probably going to be way behind the Steelers and probably rest of the AFC field. Even though the AFC is pretty weak this year, I think they'll be way too behind by the time they might get healthy. And that's assuming that they even do get healthy because maybe some other injuries will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next game we have the Tennessee Titans and the Las Vegas Raiders. Two kind of bad. These are two bad teams. I was gonna say two mid teams, but they're bad. They're pretty bad. Geno Smith has been the darling of a lot of film bros, and I always thought that he was pretty good, but he's had a really, really bad start to this year. He's just throwing pick after pick after pick. Ashton Jeanty has kind of heated up as of late, but there's only so much you can do when Geno Smith is playing this bad. Brock Bowers missed last week too, but I don't think he would have really helped at all. The Titans, on the other hand, just got that victory, but I think it's still a really fluky victory. Like, how many times is some guy just going to drop the ball at the 1 yard line, and how many times are you going to get an interception and then fumble it, and then you can recover it? So I think that even though the Raiders aren't good, I think that Tennessee Titans are another level of not good. So I think that the Raiders will win this game.
Yeah, I agree. Cam Ward has impressed so far this season, but the Titans
Yeah.
just don't have a lot of talent on their team currently. And the Raiders don't have much either, but they've just seemed more functional at times, and that should be enough to squeak out the win. But honestly, I could see this game going either way. I wouldn't be particularly shocked, but yeah, I think the Raiders get the win. Green Bay Packers. No, the Cincinnati Bengals were at the Green Bay Packers, with the Packers being gargantuan 14.5 point favorites. The Bengals, even after trading for Joe Flacco, are just in complete free fall until they prove otherwise. Zach Taylor looks like he might get fired this season. There's just the offense is horrendous right now, and the defense, which was gonna be bad regardless, doesn't have the offense to like mask how terrible it is. And the Packers, even though they've had the tie and the rough loss to the Browns, are just like way, way more talented than the Bengals. I don't know if they'll clear 14 and a half points, like beat them by 14 or more, by 15 or more points, but it still should be a very comfortable win for the Packers.
Yeah. I think that Joe Flacco is an upgrade over Jake Browning, but at the same time, that's not really saying much.
Yeah.
So, the Bengals have not won this year. They either played in a really good defense or they played a really good offense, and the Bengals don't have either. So I think that the Packers, I don't know if they'll win by 15 points, but I expect them to win this game pretty comfortably. All right. Next, we have the San Francisco 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Brock Purdy might be back to this game for the San Francisco 49ers. Even then, I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will win this game. Baker Mayfield might be the MVP favorite right now. He has his team as 4-1. He currently has the least. I think he has the least efficient rushing attack in the league. Not the least efficient. I think at least it's bottom five, but he's not had a very good run game with them. His defense hasn't exactly thrown all that much, but he has him at 4-1 because he's playing so dang good. Emeka Ibuka has gone absolutely nuclear to start his career. With Mike Evans being out now and Chris Godwin being out at the beginning of the year, he's become Baker Mayfield's favorite target. Just catching touchdown to touchdown. I think he's had a touchdown in every single game of his career so far. So obviously, just a very impressive start for him. I think Tampa Bay will win this game. They are 2.5 point favorites at home. I think this will be a close game because I think the 49ers aren't bad. Christian McCaffrey is finally having a healthy year. They might have George Kittle back this week too. So I think this will be a really tight game, but I think that Tampa Bay will eke it out.
Yeah, I think I agree. Matt Jones has been very impressive in starting for Brock Purdy, but the Tampa Bay Bucks, that offense has just been insane to start the season with Emeka Egbuka and Baker Mayfield. Even though Bucky Irving was out last week, the Bucks offense did not miss a beat. And the Niners do have a lot of talent. They're a very good team so far, but I just think in a shootout, the Bucks do enough to get the win. Detroit Lions at the Kansas City Chiefs, with the Chiefs being 2.5 point favorites, which is honestly kind of shocking to me with how bad the
Yeah.
Chiefs have looked at times this season. Even though they're the Chiefs, and you have to respect that they have Mahomes and everything, they have not looked like a playoff caliber team so far to start the season. Meanwhile, the Lions have just been absolutely crushing teams to start the season. Um, they haven't looked like they've missed a beat since they lost Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn on defense. Dan Campbell's just done an incredible job of getting new coordinators. And I think the Chiefs could get blown out in this game, honestly. Their defense has been mediocre. That offense looks very rough at times. Devin Lloyd had a 99-yard pick six against them. But also they have Patrick Mahomes, so at the end of the day, like you never know, he could just go insane and just have an incredible performance and just eke out a win versus the Lions. But just based off the talent and how they've played to start the season, I think the Lions should have this win.
Yeah, I think I agree. This entire year, I kind of been thinking like, okay, whenever, because I've had like pick'em leagues and things like that. I think I've always chosen the Chiefs because they're like they're the Chiefs. You can't like doubt them. But after this last game against Jacksonville, don't think that they didn't really do that well against Trevor Lawrence. I don't think they're going to do well against the Lions offense with how Jared Goff is playing right now. Jared Goff is playing really good. Their run game is doing really good. I just don't think that the Chiefs will. You mentioned that the Chiefs might get blown out. I think that's a very real possibility. Obviously, like you said, we have to respect Patrick Mahomes and what they've done. But I think that I don't want to have my statement age poorly and say that the Chiefs dynasty is over. But I don't know. I just don't think that no, I just don't think that they're very good right now. Um, I think that the Lions will win this game. I think it's a very good possibility that they win it comfortably too.
Yeah. Like the Chiefs could get back to form. Like they're gonna get Rasheed Rice back after this game,
Mhm.
and that could like give them their offense like a boost to like get back to form and everything. But like just currently with just Xavier Worthy, even though Tyquan Thornton has been a nice surprise for them, it's just they don't. It doesn't look like they have enough firepower to keep up with the Lions.
Yeah, and also their defense isn't very impressive either. So good luck stopping the Lions. All right. Next we have a doubleheader on Monday Night Football, which sucks. Let's just be honest. I don't think that these doubleheaders are very good. But we have the Buffalo Bills at the Atlanta Falcons. Buffalo is 3.5 point favorites on the road. Atlanta, they've been kind of a bit confusing this year. They got shut out by the Panthers like 30-0, and then they had a great game against the Commanders. They lost to the Bucks when they had a game when they had a game win when they had a lead taking drive, and then the Bucks took a lead taking drive, and then Koo missed a field goal. Um, so I think Atlanta's pretty mid this year. I think their offense is pretty good. Kyle Pitts has finally lived up to his promise. Bijan Robinson has been one of the best running backs in football. Michael Penix has been um not very consistent. He's had some bad games. He's had some good games. On the other side, Buffalo is coming off a really rough loss to the New England Patriots, which a lot of it you could say was their own doing. They had a few bad fumbles. Um, so had a pick in the red zone by Josh Allen. I do think that even though this happened, I think that the Buffalo Bills will bounce back to win this game. I think that they're a lot more talented. I think that there isn't a big coaching discrepancy. I think they're better on offense. I think they're better on defense. I think Josh Allen will have a great game like he always does, and they'll get this win.
Yeah, I agree. The Falcons have been a feisty team, but they're more on like the mid tier, and the Bills, even though they had that disappointing loss to the Patriots, they're still a much more talented team. They have Josh Allen. I think they should. I don't know if comfortably, but they should have this win. The last game we have this week is the Chicago Bears at the Washington Commanders, with the Commanders being favored by 4.5 points. The Commanders have looked good. They did lose Jaden Daniels for 2 weeks. Um, they beat the Chargers this past week in a pretty comfortable win after being down 10-0. I think the Washington should have this win versus the Bears, even though Caleb Williams has looked a lot better and Rome Odunze has emerged. They have won their last 2 games and they've had this bye week to rest and everything, so they could surprise the Commanders. Honestly, would not be shocked by that, but they've been lightly inconsistent. Their defense seems to be mediocre. Their offense has looked a lot better with Ben Johnson calling the offense, but I think the Commanders should have this win. But I wouldn't be surprised if this is a high scoring game where the Bears just happen to have the ball last and get the win.
The running back Ja'Cory Prescott Merritt has had a kind of his breakout game where he had over 100 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns. Um, they did play a team that kind of shot themselves in the foot a bit. You know, they had that punt return touchdown called back. They had a bunch of penalties. The Chargers did, but obviously you can't discredit a win against a good team like that. Chicago has had good last 2 games where they won against, but they also played the Cowboys and the Raiders, 2 teams that aren't very good on defense, but they had good performance against the Lions. And so I think that this will be a pretty tight game. You mentioned that you could see this game a shootout. I could also see it being a shootout, but I do think that Washington at home will be able to get the victory. So thank you so much for listening to this first episode of the 214 215 podcast. More episodes will come, and just yeah, thank you guys all for watching.
See you next week.